finally treat. So it's Wednesday, and the week is half over, and I hope we're not all completely dead. I think I can speak for all of us when I say the break cannot get here fast enough. Unfortunately, because of when the days fall this year, we only get about 2 weeks between the end of finals and the start of the new quarter. And while we did have a week for Thanksgiving, personally, I spent most of it trying to get caught up on homework and got very little actual vacation. And so a longer break would definitely be appreciated. And that, not so coincidentally, is what we're going to be talking about today. For those of you who don't know, last year, because of COVID, they combined the Thanksgiving and winter breaks in order to decrease travel and the possible spread of the disease. They started 2 weeks early in September, and we finished finals right before Thanksgiving. And this resulted in a break that lasted about a month and a half. It was very nice and relaxing. And so today, we are going to be talking about the pros and cons of a combined winter break and how the net benefits of this method far outweigh those of a separate break. I will be covering the general preferences and benefits for student life. Adele is going to go over sports and how it affects game schedules. Mimi is going to cover how it will affect the Christmas music program. Clayson is going to explain the benefits to travel and finances. Dylan is going to go into detail about the benefits of safety of this method, and Treat will be the one to wrap it all up. So when we were deciding what to do for a symposium topic, Mimi suggested this, and we all thought it was a really good idea. I mean, everyone would like a longer winter break. And so we started looking into what would need to happen and what would need to change in order to bring it back. We decided to put together a survey, and we added questions that involved travel and finances, sports, music, general preferences, and in the case for the one for the professors, we added questions about student academic success and how they felt the longer break might affect that. We talked to people in several different departments, and overwhelmingly, the majority wanted a longer winter break too. It was clear we were not the only ones thinking about this. And I'm sure a lot of you know about the ASU survey that came out a couple weeks ago as well. So we worked on this. We got a lot of input from a lot of different people. We asked different professors what we should add. And when we finally finished the survey, it became clear it wasn't just the majority. We surveyed over 60 people, a combination of students and professors, and 100% of respondents of both areas responded that they wanted a longer break. Even on the question that a few people answered that they didn't enjoy the longer break last year, they still said they wanted a longer break. And so that's pretty telling. A longer break would also make it easier to spend time with friends and family during the holidays. As you can see, for students, 90% of people said the longer break would make it easier to spend time with friends and family. There would be a lot of benefits, and students aren't the only ones who would benefit from this, actually. This is our professor version, and about 62% said it would make it easier. And if you'll notice both of them, no one said it would make it more difficult. More time with friends and family during the holiday can also help increase your mental health, which I know a lot of us struggle with right now. And with the pandemic and the state of the world being what it is, it's important to spend time with friends and family whenever we can. A longer break would also mean less travel, and it would decrease the stress of the holiday season. A lot of the people we surveyed live pretty far away, and it can take them a day, if not more, to travel one way. And if you have a week for Thanksgiving, that's like half of it spent traveling and very little to actually spend with friends and family. There would also be less spending involved because we'd only be traveling to and from our destinations once instead of twice. So during the course of our research, I interviewed one of the professors in the engineering department, Dr. Brian Roth. And in the course of our interview, he mentioned that in some of their faculty meetings, a topic of a longer break had actually come up. And that some of the professors had mentioned that they felt if we started 2 weeks early in September, that it would affect students' ability to get an internship over the summer. But when we surveyed, less than 2% of students said they felt it would negatively affect them. And even if we were to start early, and it would mean a few less weeks to work in the summer, the extra time in the winter would mean students would be able to get a job then. They would be able to work for a few weeks and earn some extra money for holiday travel and all the other expenses that crop up this time of year. Along with all the other benefits, there are academic ones as well. According to our survey, a lot of professors found that during the last 2 weeks of school, many of the students they felt were more invested and attentive in classes than in previous years because of the lack of a break before the last few weeks. We were able to just keep going and we weren't interrupted. Another question we asked was whether they felt students did better or worse academically last year. And while there were lots of factors, and professors did in fact feel that students did worse overall, when it came to the question of the finals, they felt there was no noticeable difference. The lack of a break allowed us to stay on track and finish the quarter strong despite everything else that was going on. So there's that. Professors also found in one of the questions from the professors, they found it easier to schedule classes and exams, which I'm sure not all of you are very happy about, but I'm sure Dr. C would appreciate. So there's a lot of benefits. There's the travel, there's the spending, there's the time with friends and family. There's the straight preference of literally everyone we asked wanting a longer break. There are all these great things, and it would help the schedule in a lot of ways. However, not all of the effects it would have are benefits. It would negatively affect a few other things. It would make it harder to schedule games and sports, for example. And Adil is going to talk about that now.
Thank you, Sarah. So I wouldn't say it would negatively affect all sports, like volleyball, golf, track, cross country, soccer would all be okay if we took the longer break because their seasons would be done. But for women's and men's basketball, as you can see, it's Kobe Bryant, the GOAT, and her name is Paige. She's a good college player. But it would affect women's and men's basketball tremendously because the majority of our games and practices are in the winter time and during Thanksgiving, like Thanksgiving break and throughout Christmas. We have a game on New Year's this year and on New Year's Eve. So that is Jurassic, and that would be bad. And then this is a graph that we did, polling like who meets up, who practices, or who's on a sports team that meets up regularly throughout the week that goes to school. And it said like they have about like a few people said they don't, and a few people have like a few practices during the week. But I feel like me being a basketball player, I can vouch for it that like we have a lot of practices throughout Christmas break and Thanksgiving break, such as what we had. And no matter what, even if the break was together or if we split it up like we do right now, sports, men's and women's basketball would still suffer no matter what because we didn't have as long as the Thanksgiving break as you guys, and we're not going to have as long as a Christmas break as you guys. As of this year, we only get the 21st to the 26th off. So that's what it is, and then go to the next slide. How many of y'all like sports? Like, raise a hand. A lot of you. I'd be majority of the class. That would suck for you guys because you wouldn't be able to watch most of our games because you would be home by the fire, chilling with Santa and your family and everything, So that would suck for you guys because you wouldn't be able to watch us win and do well and play. But that would also suck for us because we wouldn't have any fans or many fans. And games would either have to be rescheduled At the district level, so, you know, our Cascadia Collegiate Conference, which is the NAIA league we're in, would have to reschedule either all of their league games, or if we were the only school to make it where break is throughout the whole time, Thanksgiving through Christmas, then they would try and have to reschedule our games, so at least the athletes can have a somewhat of a break, and people can still participate, and coaches aren't like freaking out, and the athletic directors and all can have enough student workers for the games and etc. Another big issue that would pop up with this longer extension is the dorm rooms and the cafeteria would technically not be open. And I would say 90% of men's and women's basketball players this year live on campus, and they all have a meal card. So it would affect us drastically because we'd have to find separate housing and a place where we could all eat under the school, kind of, quote unquote. And yeah, that's basically it. That's a picture of me and Evan. I wish Evan was here. But it just shows you how great sports are, because I've known Evan for 3 years, 2.5, 3 years now, and who would have thought we'd be going to the same college and let alone playing on the same team when we're on different teams. And I won this game, by the way. So you can not ask him about it, it's his worst nightmare. But yeah, no, that's the biggest thing about sports. But not only sports, there's also music, which has a pretty downside to the break as well. And Mimi will talk more about that.
Okay. Hello. So something that happens during December is the Christmas program directed by the music department. If you don't know what it is, it's in December. It's where students, teachers, and church members come together, and they're in choir, symphonies, and the orchestra. So let's say like the break is combined. There's a big chance that everyone's at home, the students, the teachers, and this can cause a negative impact on who could be there, if it could be live streamed. There's a bunch of problems that can occur with this, but I do think there are ways to accommodate with this. There could be maybe before Thanksgiving break, it could be like a fall concert, or there could be after combined break, and it could be just like a winter concert. Or if like those also like seem like they're not gonna work out, it could just be canceled in general. Obviously that's not what the best idea is, but it is an idea. Okay. So in the survey there was 2 questions for both the teachers, professors, and the students. And so for the professors' responses, it was, the first question talks about if it was before Thanksgiving break or before the combined break, how would they feel about it? And for the professors, 87% of them said it would not really make a difference. And the rest of them said it would be negative to them. And then the next question is, if the Christmas program was live streamed, how would that make them feel? And 62% said it would be less enjoyable. And then the remainder, 37% said it wouldn't really make a difference. And then so for the students, we asked the same questions. And so for the first one about it being before Thanksgiving break, let's see. It didn't really make a difference for them if it was before, 74% of them. And then the remainder said it would have a positive effect on them. And the last question is the live streaming question, like how would that make your enjoyment of the concert? And they said 81%, majority said it would not make a difference. And the remainder said it would either be enjoyable or less enjoyable. So there is a very big problem with this. Like, it's a tradition that's been going on for a while now, and something that people might not like changing. but I believe that there's a bunch more positive impacts that can happen within combining the breaks, within finance, traveling, and most importantly, safety. So they will talk about that for us.
All right, so we did the survey of, we surveyed over 60 students here at Walla Walla, and the average travel time was about 8 hours for every student. And as you can see, we're pretty spread out, and there's only a mark to like where everyone's only live. Like multiple people live there, we just make one mark for multiple people living there. So like Southern California had probably like 10 more people there. But on the survey as well, it showed that 75% of people travel through a car, whether they ride with a family member home or they drive themselves home, and then about 25% fly home. And what, according to the Bureau of Transportation, which Dylan will talk about later, can make for unsafe road travel and things like that. So by limiting the days we travel, cutting the break into one, we're only traveling one day there, one day to get back instead of 2 more days. It can help prevent the time we spend on the roads, because personally, I don't like driving that long. I don't like sitting in airports for very long or sitting on a flight for very long. So getting it cut in half will be very beneficial. And then finances. The average cost for a student to go home was about $310. And that, we also got that off the survey. Someone was spending $3,000 to get home. I don't know what they were doing, where they were going, but that's what they said. So, but $310 isn't like crazy, but like we're having to do that to get home, to get back, to get home again, and then to get back again. And honestly, it's $1,240, and I personally don't just have $1,240 to spend on whatever, because I'm a college student, don't have a job right now, so I'm poor. And we're already paying, as college students, we're already paying quite a bit of money for college as well, and now we have to pay a big chunk to get home, where we should be trying to kind of relax and not worry about finances. And the impacts that these two things will have is on finals. So like for finals, you're never really going to be able to eliminate the stress of finals. It's just kind of going to always be there, no matter if it's before the break or after. But if we have them before the break, you're able to go home for the break and not worry about it as much. Like, I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I would go home, or when I went home for Thanksgiving, I'd kind of find myself thinking about this week, even like obviously this presentation, or my next week, or a bunch of finals that I have next week, and kind of didn't make the Thanksgiving break that enjoyable, kind of made it a little bit shorter, and just wasn't as fun as it could have been. And then, and also, like Sarah said, that a lot of professors said it would help academically, because we're rolling into the finals instead of taking like a week off, where, I mean, I didn't study during Thanksgiving break, I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't really looking forward to doing homework while I was at home, so I kind of just didn't do it. But if you roll into the break, you're able to do it before you go home, then you don't even have to worry about it. It's not even there in the back of your head. And then also, it allows us to get a job. If you're home for a month and a half, you can work a somewhat decent job. Like I'll be going home, I'll be going working at a ski resort, teaching snowboarding, and I'm able to teach, and enough days where I'm actually making good enough money to have some extra money to get home and to come up here and eat something other than the calf. But also with getting a job, if you can go home and get a job for 2 weeks, but to make any kind of good money, you kind of have to work every day. But if you have a month and a half, then you can kind of pick and choose, spend time with friends, family, don't have to work on Christmas or Thanksgiving, stuff like that. So it makes it a little bit more enjoyable throughout the holidays, and you can make a little bit more money. So to recap, if we have this longer break, or not really longer, just one big break instead of 2 shorter breaks, it can help us de-stress during the holidays and stuff, so don't worry about finals. Can let us get a job so we can make more money. Can help with limiting our expenses and the time we spend on the roads, which the more time we spend on the roads can make for unsafe driving conditions, which Dylan will talk about now.
Hello guys, as Clayson and Sarah touched on, I'll be talking to you guys about travel safety. More specifically, we're going to look into how a combined brake will offer improved road safety and driving safety for our students. First, we're going to look into data gathered from the survey that we put out to the student body. Next, we'll look into travel statistics gathered on a national level. And finally, we'll assess the problems that are presented and the solutions that our combined winter break would have to offer. So first, on the student survey that we put out, we asked a question asking what's your main method of transportation to get home over the holidays? And about 3/4 of our survey population answered that they traveled by car. So for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to focus on that group specifically. And then on another question we asked, given your personal situation, is it easier to schedule time with your friends and family during the holidays? And about 1/4 of the population answered that there are significant time conflicts, and a majority of the population answered that there are some conflicts in scheduling time with family over break. So considering these, just keep these in your head as we continue to go further. On the national level, there's a lot of travel statistics that have been gathered. First, the Bureau of Transportation has gathered that on Thanksgiving break, there's an equal volume of long-distance travel between Wednesday through Sunday. Now this means that people traveling home for Thanksgiving break from Walla Walla, some are expected to still be traveling home even into Wednesday. And furthermore, that means that there's more people on the roads and more probability of collisions. And then relating to Christmas, it's been found by the Bureau of Transportation that the busiest days of travel are the Saturday and Sunday before Christmas. So that's, for example, not this coming Saturday and Sunday, but the next one, when still many students will be traveling from Walla Walla to home. Furthermore, the National Highway Travel Safety Administration, or NHTSA, has gathered a lot of data relating to vehicle occupant fatalities. And if you could put that chart up. They've gathered that around certain holiday periods, as you can see in the graph here, there's a specific spike in vehicle occupant fatalities. Now you see there's one kind of around New Year's, 4th of July, small one near Thanksgiving, and a fairly large one near Christmas, which is that last spike on the graph. And I'd like to point out that you can see all these spikes, but particularly in reference to the Christmas period, the spike doesn't go up just for the day, but it goes up, each of those dots is a day. And you can see there's a week before, there's still quite high fatalities per day. Now, this is incredibly relevant to us because a lot of us will still be traveling within a couple days before Christmas. Furthermore, the NHTSA puts out warnings for holiday travel each year, in which they kind of give a prediction of how many accidents and fatalities they predict. An example of this is they put out pamphlets sponsored by the Department of Transportation as well. So considering the higher risk for accidents and fatalities, let's look into how our combined break could solve that issue. So first off, having students traveling home before Thanksgiving, staying home throughout the holiday period, and then coming back to Walla Walla around New Year's would prevent travel during the riskiest days of travel, such as before Christmas and after Thanksgiving. Furthermore, as Clayson touched on, there's going to be a reduce in risk-taking and stress as drivers are less rushed to get home right on time so they can have Thanksgiving with their family and then have to rush back to Walla Walla and get back on time. It'll improve time scheduling is something we gathered from our survey. As you can see, this question here asks, how do you feel the longer break might affect your time scheduling with your family? And around 90% answered that it would make time scheduling easier. And I'd like to also draw attention to that 10% that said it wouldn't really change are the people who already signified that already don't have any time conflicts. So in a sense, we have about 100% that would have a easier break because of having a longer break. Furthermore, there's a concept in transportation engineering that's called conflict points, and that's when you have vehicles coming through an intersection and they cross paths. And I'd like to extend that theory that's been published by the Minnesota Department of Transportation into our symposium and consider that, I believe it was Adil had mentioned that we don't have as many people going back and forth and causing them to cross paths, which would reduce accidents as well. With all this in mind, I'd like to hand the baton over to Treat and have him explain how all of these solutions are relevant to our entire thesis.
Howdy y'all. So our thesis statement was, when comparing the pros and cons of a combined break, the net benefits of this method far outweigh those of separate breaks. Basically, the pros, there's a lot more pros than cons. Sarah went over and said that, 100% of students wanted the longer break. They would, and professors. So right there, that's a big one right there. Everyone wants it. And it makes it easier to spend time with friends and family, get a job, and make money, as Clayson was going over. The sports and music program are a problem. As a sports, we would have to figure out how to reschedule games, or just know when you're signing up for sports that that's just something that you would have to deal with for being a student athlete. The music program, you would, Mimi had a couple solutions there on whether we could, do it at a different time, cancel it, or maybe even go online. So these are some of the solutions we came up for those problems. And then between Clayson and Dylan, we talked about just how much money you could save. Frankly, how much safer it would be. As you saw, the travel statistics and death rate and whatnot are much higher during the holiday season. And by doing this, you're cutting that in half. So that right there is a big thing. So we strongly believe that the pros outweigh the cons, and that this is something that we think should be pushed forward and would be a better thing for the school. And that's our presentation. Thank you for listening.